Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we have an amazing podcast with an awesome guest. I look forward to having this shared with all of you. And the podcast sponsor for today is Naked Actives, an amazing skincare company, clinically proven. They also have hydrating cleansers, anti-aging skin cleansers. They're tested on humans, not on animals. They are vegan friendly. This is a brand that you want to support and that you want to buy for your skin because they have the top notch of all quality products that you put on your skin. You know what's in the products because they have lists of what is exactly put in the product, and they're at an affordable price. So go check them out, and there's something for your skin for every type of skin out there, whether you be 50, 20, 30, whether you have oily skin, not oily skin, it doesn't matter. They have anti-aging serums, damage repair. Everything that they have on this website and everything that they have for the company is top notch. So go check them out. They're in the description below, and enjoy the video. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Daily Dose podcast. Today we have on Suzanne. Welcome, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm fine, Ryan. How are you?
Good. So you've had many various positions in as an executive director. You now currently are a mentor. You do a lot of volunteering. You're a strategic leader. You have tons of things going on. Tell us a little about yourself right now from your eyes.
Well, I've had a successful career that allowed me to develop my skills, to live in exciting places like Hong Kong and the Netherlands, and work with tremendously talented people. And I did that. I had a job that I loved, in my wildest dreams, I could never have imagined that I would have. And I did that for over 30 years. And now, after realizing that, wow, I'm really good at working, but when you're traveling 3 weeks out of 4 and working, 12-hour days, there are other parts of your life that suffer. So I decided to take a step back and figure out what I wanted to do next with my life and do some of the things that I had put aside.
That's awesome. So what are the things that keep you motivated when you were in those times of working so much? Did you have certain things that you kind of kept to keep your head clear, or?
I think that I think there are two things. One is that I was really committed to the organization. So I worked with an organization named CSA, Canadian Standards Association, and our purpose was to use standards and certification of products to make a better, safer world. And I think that doing something that I believe mattered really resonated with me. So that spurred me on to do things. I think keeping my head, it was a matter of engaging people, keeping sight of the goals, and just being determined to get it done. In some odd way, it never seemed like we were going to not do it. You just made it happen. And we all worked really hard to do that and just kept going.
Well, one thing I heard in there was you talked about goals. Were those personal goals, or were those more so goals from the company that you worked with? I know for me how important goals are. I mean, for everyone, goals are very important to keep you going, because without it, you're kind of going around. So what did those look like while you were working?
I think I did a fair bit of wandering around, to be honest, Ryan. My goals were always to do the best I could at the job that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was determined to make sure that the people I worked with succeeded, that we did our best for the organization. And so I think more than anything, my goals were career oriented as opposed to personal goals. Now, when I mentor people, I say, your career is one aspect, but what are you doing with your other parts of your life? To be honest, that was harder for me. work took up a lot of my life, partly because I loved it, and partly because I was determined to succeed, I think. But you know what, you also get on, I think when you're working a job you love and you're doing things that you believe are important, you get on a bit of roller coaster, right? You're on the roller coaster and you don't really get off until it stops, I think, to a certain extent. And so I felt a little bit like that, but man, it was a thrilling roller coaster.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from knowing you for my whole life, it was always something very interesting to come home with. And when I'd see you, there'd be something new that was just seemed out of my realm at that time. But with all of that, like you were talking about the roller coaster, that comes a lot of change. And a lot of people, especially I find coming in young adults, they seem to be afraid of change. What did you kind of do in times that a lot of change happened that was new to you?
You know, I'm a person who actually likes change. I think one of the reasons this job suited me so much was because there was a ton of variety in it, and I wasn't dealing with. We used to joke when I was in the marketing department. It's not like we're selling toothpaste in Southern Ontario. We're dealing with privacy standards. We're dealing with electrical hazards. We're dealing with the safety of gas barbecues. We're dealing with brain injuries and concussions through hockey helmets. I was dealing with how organs and cells were used in transplants. So I had a range of things coming at me from not only across Canada, but from across the world. And, I'm not an expert in anything, but I know a lot about a whole bunch of things. And I really love that. I enjoy ideas. I enjoy putting ideas together. I enjoy learning. Change was the hard part when you were going through a corporate reorganization, or when you had to, restructure a department or change out people. Those are the kinds of changes that, that I found the hardest to deal with. When you had a plan and it wasn't working and you had to change the whole direction of your group, those things were hard. When you had to tell people that, no, we're changing, maybe you're not part of the team anymore, maybe what we thought was going to happen wasn't going to happen. That kind of change was really hard. And I think what I did probably two things is, I had a good group of people that I always tried to have good people that I trust and worked with, and we could talk things through and stick together and work through it. And, when things got bad, I worked harder. And that's not always the right thing to do, but it was certainly my coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things in there. Team and working together is very important. For me, I know that I always thought it was just a single thing, but as I come and I get older, I see that you can't do anything without a team. So what does that mean to you when you were referencing that and getting through those situations?
Well, I think you're exactly right. I mean, you can do things by yourself, and there's certain projects that are solitary. But, in most cases, you need people to cooperate. You need people to do things, to do aspects of the project, because you only have so much time. You have to use people's strengths. I wasn't great at technical analysis or financial analysis. Those are not my strengths. So I needed to have people to do that kind of stuff and bring out good information. And, I think that it's really hard to get people to work together because, people have different personalities. They have different dreams and goals. They have different work styles. But when you can get a great team together, and not even a great team, but when you can get people committed to a goal and moving in the same direction, that's the magic, right? That's the magic. And when you can allow or help people use their strengths to succeed and do something that they really are excited about, that's everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, this kind of
and it's hard because getting people all together, going in the same direction. I remember I used to present our strategy to the division when I was president of the standards division. and I'd be all excited and we've got money and we're going to do this and la la la, and I could see people just sort of looking at me like, yeah. And I remember once stopping the presentation and said, look, I've sat in those chairs and I've heard the bosses, or the leaders talk about this stuff off, and you're all rolling your eyes going, yeah, it's just another meeting. But, you have to believe that we're actually going to accomplish this stuff, and it's going to be hard, but it's going to be good. And so you have to recognize that, as a leader, you get both darts and laurels, as they say, right? Everybody wants to take the leader down because they're the pain in the neck that are asking you to do X, Y, and Z in some cases. But if you can help people see your vision and see, the benefits, not only to the industry or society or to people at large, but to themselves, and we all move forward, that's great. There are a lot of barriers to making that happen, mind you, but it's great when you can do it. And I have to say that I had great people to work with, and we had a lot of fun, and worked out pretty well.
Well, the one thing that kind of showed out to me was, was there certain things that you would use for yourself to get those people to see the vision? Like, were there certain things that you did yourself to get people to see and cooperate with that vision?
I think a couple of things is communication, and not convoluted communication, but simple, direct communication, and the repetition of that vision and what it means and what it could be. I think, a lot of people get caught up in rhetoric and fancy ideas, but you need to talk to people in a way that they understand, and a way that engages and inspires. And it's remembering their accomplishments. It's remembering, I think the way you get people to buy into a certain extent is to show what we've done, what we haven't done so well, but what we've done well, and call out people in terms of recognizing what they did well, and then showing that we're building on all of our collective strengths to move forward. I think that was one of the things that probably worked best for me. And really convincing them that we could do it, because people doubt the resolve of leadership. People doubt that you're going to deliver what you promise. People doubt that you know what you're talking about. I mean, for God's sakes, I was a woman with a English and sociology degree in a sea of engineers. They really, a lot of them just wanted to pull me down, to be quite honest. But when you can show them that you value them and their contribution, and that their contribution will be appreciated and recognized, and that what the work they're doing is important, people go with you.
Wow,
mostly.
that was great. A lot of things I personally pulled out of there, and that people can pull out of there. I mean, the ones that stood out to me were like showing people that they are doing well, because sometimes if they don't see the end, they don't necessarily feel that they're doing well, because all that they see is their own thing. So, and I mean, leadership, it's very important to have those people that bring you up no matter what, and continue to see the end. And a lot of times,
and you know what, I think the other, sorry to interrupt, Ryan, but
no,
the other thing I would say is that people knew that I had their back. I would always tell them that they're going to get all the credit and I'm going to take all the blame, right? So when things didn't work out, and they don't always work out, it was always my fault. But when things were going really well and, we achieved stuff, it was the team who achieved it. It wasn't me. And I think that as a leader is also, when people believe that you're that kind of leader, then they'll work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. When they know that they know that someone has their back, it's not just you do this for me. And I completely agree with that. One other thing that I wanted to point on was when you said everyone had an engineering degree and you just had sociology and the economics. English. Okay.
English.
And that one, yeah, that to me was something that shows that no matter what you want to do, you can be successful at it. So how did that journey kind of go for you, from doing those degrees to being where you were at in CSA?
Oh, it's kind of funny. I grew up in Niagara Falls, and I put myself through school by waitressing at various fine establishments throughout Niagara. And I went to university thinking I was going to be a social worker. In part, I went into Laurier in Waterloo, and they had a good master's program. And I thought, okay, that's where I'll go. And I started out studying sociology. And in my first year, I worked with a lot of social workers, and I did some volunteer work, and had a couple of tough situations. And the social workers kept saying, don't go into social work. It's really awful. And it's, it's this and that. And so I kind of started second guessing myself. So I picked up a second major, which was English. And if anybody knows Laurier, Laurier has an excellent English program, but Laurier is a business school. We used to call them bizwimps in my days. And I lived with, 4 other women, and 3 of them were all in business, and only business mattered. So as I branched off and did a double major and I was graduating, I really didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. But Laurier had these on-campus interviews, and anybody could apply for them. They weren't limited to bizwimps. And so there was an advertising agency. I thought, advertising, that sounds great. I think I could do something about that. One of the things I knew is that I could present well, I could communicate and convince people of things. So I did this interview with this very posh ad agency, and kudos to that guy for even taking the interview, right? Because all I had was waitressing and some tutoring on my resume. And he asked me why I thought I would be good in advertising. And it was an account rep position. And I said, well, I basically explained to him, if you could be a good waitress that did, maybe 800 dinners a night, and balance the needs of the customer, the door, the kitchen, your teammates, and, do it with a smile on your face and make money, then you could do anything, including being an account rep. And, the guy listened and asked me questions, and I got a second interview. I didn't get the job, but I got a second interview. And that helped me see that it wasn't so much the degree, it was the skills that I had to offer and how those skills fit with the job. So after I graduated, I knew I didn't want to go to graduate school because I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I moved to Toronto. And I started looking for jobs. And, it was when I graduated, it was a horrible job market. I sent out over 300 resumes. I had a resume at I had an interview at CSA for a technical editor. And the woman that was interviewing me said, oh my goodness, we got well over 200 applicants for this position. I couldn't believe the interest. And I started to smile. And she said, well, why are you smiling? And I said, well, the last 2 positions I interviewed for had over 500 applicants. So the odds are getting better. And I swear that convinced her to give me the job. She looked at me with such like horror and pity that she gave me the job. But anyways, I started as, I had other contract positions before that, but I started a full-time job at CSA as a technical editor. I didn't know what a standard was. I didn't know what CSA was. I didn't know anything. Everybody was really old. I was young. It was like horrifying. I thought I was going to quit in the first 6 months, but I had to pay my rent, so I stayed. It turned out okay in the end, though.
Wow. And what did it look like once you were in? Was that a gradual move up, or how did that go from being the editor to being where you were at the end?
I was lucky because CSA was an organization that was changing and growing quite a lot. And we had a new vice president that had come in, and he wanted to raise standards profile. So I was editing standards, which are boring engineering documents, PS. They're, and you're looking at technical drawings. And I worked with one other editor who was well suited. And I kind of thought, oh my God, what have I done? But anyways, this engineer came in, and he wanted to start, this vice president came in and started marketing. And he couldn't decide if he wanted somebody who really knew marketing, or if he needed somebody who understood standards that he could help teach marketing. So thankfully for me, he chose the latter. And I became a marketing coordinator reporting to a vice president, which was unheard of, because that was a number of ranks down the ladder. But he knew that the organization didn't know much about marketing and would probably try to kill it. So I was his protege, and I went and took courses at night at George Brown College. I worked and learned, and it started there. So that was, we moved into electronic printing, electronic publishing, all of that. So I would say that I changed jobs every 3 to 5 years. So I went from marketing into sales promotion, then electronic publishing. I headed up marketing and communications. I became the director of publishing. It just went, but it seemed like whenever there was a new department or division, they kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, she'll do it," right? And so I did. And I didn't think about what role do I want next or where was I going. I just, quite honestly, kept doing stuff that gave me more responsibility, more scope. By the end, I had worked in the corporate division and marketing communications. I started the government relations function. I had worked in the standards division, working my way up to president. I had worked in the certification and testing division, ultimately being the executive for global business strategy. So I knew the company inside out by the end because I just kept saying yes and moving around. I sometimes wonder if I should have said no once in a while. You landed yourself into some positions where you thought, oh my God, I took over international and it was a disaster. And the last 2 guys had been fired, and it was a really tough go. And I found it quite challenging. And I think I learned over time what I liked and what I didn't like. So one of the reasons I took international was an operational function where you had to look at results, get processes implemented, get people moving in the same direction. But, in Asia, and so in Korea and China and Hong Kong, India. And so the cultures were all different. Everything was different. But anyways, what I found is that was a maintenance role. You were maintaining something that already existed that you couldn't do much of. I wasn't that great at maintenance. I was much better at starting new with a blank piece of paper and developing something and building from the ground up. I think I enjoy that much better. But I think what's important for your listeners is really not the climb, but what are the skills that you like doing? What are you good at, and get better at it. When people have performance reviews, they always point out your strengths and your weaknesses, and they come up with a plan about how you're going to improve your weaknesses. Blah, blah, blah. It takes a lot of time to improve a weakness, right? I will never be a financial analyst or an accountant. It's not in me. I'll only understand numbers on a superficial level. But what I could get better at was understanding how to implement goals and how to create a vision, how to develop strategies that looked at the external world and made sense for our organization to tackle. That stuff, which I ate up, I was good at. So for people out there trying to figure out what they do, think about the things that make you excited. Think about the things that you hate, right? If planning your budget and reconciling your expenditures at the month isn't for you, don't think you're going to master it. It's probably not going to happen. You could, but it's going to be painful. But if you love doing podcasts, talking to people, if you love being organized or writing, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a career in writing or organization, but those are the things that are going to allow you to succeed at a role more readily. And you're going to enjoy yourself much more fun. You're not, swimming upstream like a salmon all the time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's great, because I remember talking, I can't remember who it was, but I remember talking to a gentleman that was saying, or no, it was Marcus, someone I had on the podcast. He was saying how people don't necessarily ever know what they want to do, and it's just following what makes you happy. And that's very reassuring for quite a lot of people that are coming out of school and that are younger these days, because it feels like you need to have a set path and it needs to be this way, but it's not always the case. And especially from your point of view, where you are now, doing so many amazing things and mentoring and doing all of these amazing volunteering opportunities. And it wasn't something that you knew that you were going to do. So that's great to hear.
You know what? I think certainly there was always pressure. I mean, the question I hated most when I was in university is, what were you going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could tell you what I wasn't going to be. You know, everybody expected I was in English. I was going to be a teacher. I knew, I knew two things. I knew I wasn't going to be a teacher because I knew that teaching the same thing year in, year out would drive me crazy. So I already knew that I like variety. I like different things. I knew I wasn't going to live in a small town. I had to get out. So I knew those two things. So even if you can identify what you're not good at, that's helpful, And I think the thing that your generation has to its advantage right now is that you have so many tools that will allow you to explore, whether it's meeting people on LinkedIn, meeting people at Meetup, finding out from people what roles are. I mean, I had no idea the number of jobs there were out there that existed that I never heard of. I mean, I really didn't know about project management. I didn't know about coordination. Never met an executive to trip over, really. So, I think be curious. Don't feel like you have to do what somebody before you, your father was a welder or your mother was a doctor. So what? That's good. And be curious about it because it's something that they can help you understand. Your mother, the doctor, can introduce you to radiology or medical records. Be curious about everyone you meet and what they do, and think about what they do versus what you might like to do, and that will help you. But of course, you feel pressure to launch and succeed, and I think that's as old as mankind or humankind, whichever you want to say.
Mm-hmm. One very reassuring quote that kind of ties into that I heard was, you only fail when you stop. You're successful as long as you're trying. And that was something that resonated with me a lot, because I always felt like you were successful once you reach the thing, but you're really successful as long as you're going towards it, and you only fail when you stop. And that's something that I found was helped me keep going. What do you go?
And I think you're right. I think that if you stop being curious and if you stop learning things, you're not going to learn something wonderful every day, and it's not all going to be, sunshine and roses. But when there's something that still gives you a spark, one of the sayings that I have on a card in my office is, life isn't about finding yourself; it's about creating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I created who I am. And I became this person, and that people expected me to speak well and look well and do the job and blah, blah, blah. And I created that person. She wasn't always there,
Mm-hmm.
And I created it because it suited me and interested me. And I think not everybody has the luxury or the privilege to do something they love. But even if it's not your career that you love, find that other thing, find something that sparks you, that keeps you going while you're doing something that might not be of full interest to you, right? Or don't make the job your center of your life like I did. That might not work for everyone. So make your other time the center of your life. I've met people that I met this great walking guide. I did a walking trip in Scotland, and the tour guide, his name was Andy, and he taught me what living to work and working to live means. Because what he did was he guided people on walking tours. He was a professional tour guide. He only worked until he earned enough money to pay his rent and his expenses, and then for the rest of the year, he went off on walks that interested him. And I was like, wow, like people really do this? I had no idea. But he lived to walk, and he only worked long enough to pay the bills. And I thought, wow, now see, it's not all about work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's great advice. That's because a lot of people see that their job is the most important because it makes the money, but they forget about themselves at the end of the day. So you saying that is very important too. What do you have anything that you would label as a success habit? Like, is there anything that you kind of do yourself that you would say keeps you successful, or you would say is attributes to success?
Um, you know, I can tell you all the things I didn't do, but one of the things that I tell people now, and I work with a lot of people that are launching their careers, maybe launching their careers first time in Canada. I tell people to think about their skills and really play to them, which I've said before, but I'll say it again because, know what you like to do, know what you don't like to do. Sometimes you have to do stuff you don't like just to pay the bills, but that's not going to be where you end up. But I think the one thing that I could say that would be most important to you and to others is, keep a list of your successes. Keep a list of projects that you're extremely proud of, and keep that list up to date. And then think about on that list what made it successful, so that when you're interviewing for a job or when you're considering a job, look at your successes and see how it matches with that. I tell people when you're interviewing about a role, it's not so much the job, it's about the skills. But when you have a project that you can refer to, you have a success story that you can use as your example during an interview, it helps you tremendously because you're proud of it. You sit up straighter, you smile, you talk with enthusiasm. People can see what you can do by having those successes. It's also important to have that list when you get beaten down, when you don't get the job or when you're feeling like you're stuck in the mud. You need a list to go back and prove to yourself all the accomplishments that you've achieved. They can be work related, they can be anything, but something that inspired you, that excited you. I think that success list is critical to your well-being and to keeping you determined to go forward.
That's a great point. And recently, I can actually say that I started one. My current mentor, he told me, keep a book where no matter how big the win is, write it down. And again, like exactly like you said, when you get down, look at those, because in those times that you're down, you seem to forget how important and how great you really are and what you've done. So I think that's a great point as well.
And the other thing that I would, and I would encourage is, there was a great business guru named Stephen Covey, and he always said, start with the end in mind. And his example was, he said, when you're lying on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking, geez, I wish I would have worked harder and got that next promotion. So even as you're starting out your career, try to think of how you would like, what you would like people to say about you in 5 years. I used to, with people on the team, I used to say, okay, if you were going to get an award in 5 years from now, what would you like that award to be? And what would you like people to say about you? Right? And that gets you thinking about, and it doesn't have to be career. It could be about, a kayaking trip, or you could be the best kayaker or dog walker or whatever it is. But what would you want people to say? You were kind and that you were curious and that you cared a lot and you got an award for something. Think about that, and maybe think about 5-year increments, maybe 10. I was never good at 10. I wasn't really that good at 5, but think about it so that you're thinking about your work and your life and the things that give you meaning in that life. I think that's really important, and say, hey, I'm going to get an award for saving people's lives. I don't know, but think about it. And then that kind of, again, gets you looking, sometimes the day to day when you're looking for work or trying to figure out where you're going, or you don't feel like you're going anywhere, daydream a little bit, look out, have a fantasy, like a kid with an imagination, create a world in your head. And that can really help you start making things happen, because you start believing you can. And that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have very great information here. A lot of the things that I share in my videos that I'm learning are tying into all of this. And it's very important to hear it from someone that is of where you have gone and where you have been, to see that it is truly a part of being successful. And it all is very positive things. I find we all know that we should be doing it, but it's what we've been kind of programmed or told to do goes against it. So it's not always natural. And that comes uncomfortability. Do you do what do you kind of do when something is uncomfortable, but you know that it's right for you? Like, what kind of keeps you moving forward through those uncomfortable times?
I think it's an important point to think about what's uncomfortable. And there, we're talking about all the great things about working like a dog and enjoying your life, but there's lots of bad things too,
Mhm.
decisions where you have to fire someone, lay people off, politics where people, are slagging you because they really want you out of that role so that they can have it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening. I think what I used to do is remind myself of why I was doing what I was doing. And, I had a really wonderful father who was very optimistic, and he always used to say to me, better days ahead. And I would remind myself better days ahead. And sometimes I would be frustrated and say, but you never said when. When are those better days coming?
Mhm.
It's hard, but you just have to have faith that you're going to get through it. And, for me, it was, I never would have guessed how determined I am, although people would laugh, who worked for me was like, ugh. But I was determined to get through it. I was determined not to stay there. And it wasn't always easy. And some nights I didn't sleep, and, I overate, I stressed out too much. I did all the things you're not supposed to do. Or, I just did too much of other things. But I think it's that there's somewhere in you, you find the voice that says, I'll get through this, right? You talk to friends. I was lucky myself to have a mentor at work who I could go to and share with, and having a person that you really trust, to have your back and talk through things. I think that actually, for both of us, we used, when I was young and starting, she was my mentor. And then as we worked, we both worked through different roles, we had each other's back, and we always knew we could go to one another and get a second opinion, get some advice, get somebody to be your cheerleader. That would really help you, if you could have a trusted person like that in your life. And I think that got me through an awful lot.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with that completely. And as we start to wrap up here, the one thing I kind of wanted to point out as we're going to come to a close is ties into your mentorship, as well as you talking about having a mentor. And some people might say it's silly that have never had one or experienced one, and how important it really is to just seeing life in a different way, to have that person that kind of guides you down that path. Um, what is the number one thing that you kind of bring to people as a mentor, and that you look for in a mentor? Like, what is the most helpful tool?
Tool. I think it's just the connection of who you can talk to. If you can't relate to the person if you can't relate to the person, or you don't feel that they get you really, or they're hearing you, then they're not the person for you.
Mm,
And as a mentor, I try not to guide. I try to um, reflect what people are saying to me, and ask them questions about what they're thinking or what they're doing. I might give them a different perspective once I understand that, but I try to help them. I try to tell them what they're saying. So
mm,
as a sound check, is this what you're really meaning? Is this what you're looking for? Is this what you hope for? Have you thought about it from this way? Maybe I hear this in it. So I try to be a translator sometimes and give them feedback, and help them confirm that they're going where they want to go, because I can't know, they need to know.
mm. Yeah, last point, the reflective questioning, and because again, you can't make anyone feel or think something that they don't want to think. So what you just said about reflecting what they feel, and you can kind of analyze it for yourself, and discovering that in yourself.
And I would also look for a mentor who can listen. And that's what I'm going
Mm,
to say the last thing. I can't tell you enough about, there's a saying, listen and learn. And as somebody starting out in an organization, listen and learn, watch, see, listen, see what you can pick up. Listen to your mentor when their mentor's talking. We don't listen that well. You can tell I'm a good talker. Sometimes I have to remind myself to listen. but listening will really give you a perspective on what's going on around you and can help you see what you might miss and help you give you clues where to go. So practice your listening skills and actively. So ask questions after you hear stuff.
Mhm. That's a great point to end on. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Suzanne. Thank you very much. It's been a great podcast, and everyone that's going to watch this, I'm sure will really enjoy it.
Well, congratulations on this initiative, Ryan. I think you're doing a great job yourself.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining in, and we'll see you next week.